Greetings, everybody. June Allen here, your racial sobriety mentor. So, today's topic is all going to be about grief and loss. I think it's an important thing to talk about at this time of year because, you know, a lot of people are generally kind of making merriment and planning and doing all that kind of stuff. But it's also important to remember that this is also a time of year when people have, you know, lost loved ones, and so many other types of loss, which I'll kind of get into when I get into the content. So, for those of you that don't know me, my name is June Allen from juneallen.net, and I teach black women how to heal from the impact of racism with racial sobriety and sacred self-love. So thank you for joining. So today's topic is all about I'm doing a series of live streams around the holidays and different topics and stuff that come up around the holidays. So today we're talking about grief and loss. Okay, grief and loss. So before I get into that, I'm just going to give you a couple of pieces of housekeeping. Now, this broadcast is also inspired by my new Living in Love program, which has already launched, but it doesn't officially. What I'm going to be doing over the next couple of weeks, let me just say this, I'm going to be doing over the next couple of weeks is I'm going to be opening a sister circle. The Living in Love program is essentially kind of built around a sister circle where we study different topics, books, all that kind of stuff. But for the next couple of weeks, because we are in the holiday season, I'm going to be opening up the sister circle space to support those of you that are having challenging times around this time of year. Maybe you've lost loved ones, maybe you've got challenging family, maybe you're feeling isolated, and this just generally this time of year is quite difficult. So I am going to be opening the sister circle space over the next 2 weeks to be able to talk about and share issues that may be relevant to you around the holiday period. So that is going to be, the first class is the 18th, which is next Wednesday, and the other class is going to be on Friday the 27th of December. So if you are having a difficult time over the holidays and you would like a space, a safe sister circle space for black women to be able to talk about different issues around family, and just to talk about the isolation, or maybe you want a space to celebrate. You want to celebrate what's going well for you, and to talk about maybe reflection on what's happened during the year, and yeah, just how you're going to be able to, however you want to express yourself in the space. You're allowed to come and do that. So if you're interested in joining us for the Living in Love program, the holiday edition support, then you can join us. Excuse me, that's the radio making all that noise. You can join, click the link in the bio, go to heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. So that's the first piece of housekeeping. The second piece of housekeeping is that the actual, the official starting of us reading the book as part of the program is going to be starting in January. So we are going to be reading All About Love by Bell Hooks. Okay, so it's a 12-month program, and we are going to be studying all aspects of love. So we're going to be talking about romance, purpose, creativity, maternal love, self-love. It's going to be primarily focused around self-love, spiritual, divine love, just friendship love, so many different things. And we're going to be studying and focusing and really diving deep into one specific aspect of love every month. So in January, we're going to be talking primarily around kind of preparing you for love. So we're going to be talking about, what are the 12 different aspects of love that I'm going to be sharing with you. We're going to be looking at your what blocks you from love, and just generally preparing, helping you set up some rituals and stuff like that. That's part of the bonus that I have for you as part of joining the program. So yeah, that all kicks off in January. So obviously we've got the 2 sessions happening in December to support you around the holidays, and then you've got the January time where it's going to kick off actually starting the program. So if you're interested in that, then you can click the link in the bio, go to heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. Now, what I will say is that there are 3 different levels. You can either have the Prime level, which is where you can't join live or whatever, because the sessions, the Sister Circle sessions, are live, and they're not going to be recorded, obviously, to maintain confidentiality. So maybe you can't attend live because of the time that it goes on in the UK, but you still want to do the work. You still want to get the audios, the heart work questions, these a lot of live streams that I'm going to be doing that won't be available permanently to the public. You can stay on that level. Or there's the middle level where you do want to actually join the live streams in the UK. It's going to be online as well, so they're probably going to be around 8 o'clock in the evening. So depending on where you are on the globe, you need to figure out if you can actually make that time. Now, those sessions, you get 2 sessions of those a month, and there will be bi-weekly Sister Circle kind of masterclass sessions. And at the moment, they are on offer at 49 versus 67, and I'm only doing that for the first 10 people that sign up. And actually, there's already been people that signed up already, so the amount of spaces that is left is going down. So if you're interested in joining us for that, then you can click the link in the bio. The third level is if you want to work with me directly while you're actually doing the program, and that's also available as well. So you get 2 one-on-one sessions with me a month. So all of that is in the bio if you click the link. Okay, so those are the 2 bits of housekeeping that I have. So the only thing else I would say about joining this broadcast, if you've got any questions or anything, if you've got anything that I'm talking about that doesn't make any sense, you can drop a note in the comments, or you can email me info@yardofgreatness.com, or you can send me a direct message. The second thing is, if you know somebody who's struggling with grief at the moment, that's struggling with loss, and you think that they would be interested in hearing this broadcast, then tag them, share it with them. And the last thing to remember is, these broadcasts that I do, I share my experience, strength and hope. And they're not a substitute for seeing a licensed mental health professional. So it's important that you get a licensed therapist or whatever. I'm a student therapist in training, so that's still got time to go. But so if you've got any deeper issues that you need to discuss around this, then obviously they need to see a licensed mental health professional. Right, so now I've got all that out of the way. Let's get into the content. So, for those of you that have just joined, my name is June Allen from JuneAllen.net, and I teach Black women how to heal from the impact of racism with sacred self-love and racial sobriety. So today's topic, we are talking about the holidays. We're talking about grief and loss. And the first thing that I will say about grief and loss is to remember that grief and loss is not just about a bereavement. It's not just about losing our loved ones. It's also about maybe you lost a job. Maybe you left a relationship. Maybe you've lost friendships. There are certain things, there are different ways that we actually experience loss. And I think obviously the default is what people think about, losing somebody through bereavement. But I think it's important to also remember that loss is incorporated in all of those other things as well. And to give yourself permission to grieve the loss of those things, because those things are, if it matters to you, if it's something that was really important to you, then it's important to also include those in the conversation around loss. So the first thing to do when we're talking about loss and how to deal with it over the holidays is to create a space. Give yourself space to be able to deal with what's going on. So at this time of the year, it is really difficult sometimes to be able to talk about loss and to be able to find a space for you to process the loss, because there's so much busyness and there's so much, everybody's rushing around doing all these different things. But if you are going through bereavement, it is important to carve out some space for you to just check in with yourself. So, and if you need to put it in your calendar, then do that. I know that might sound a bit strange, but sometimes we need to do this, especially when we are busy and there's a lot going on. Give yourself permission to just go into your calendar and say, okay, from 8 till 10, I'm just going to give myself permission to just check in with myself and see how I'm doing. Maybe you could do this in your journal, and just do some free flow writing around how you feel about the loss, how what emotions are coming up and all of that. Okay, it's important that you create a space. So with all of the stuff that's going on over the holidays, whether you celebrate Christmas or you don't celebrate Christmas or whatever's going on, get your diary out and create some space for you to be able to do that particular work, to give yourself that space and time to be able to really check in with yourself in a really compassionate way. Okay, so that's number one, create space. Number two is to talk about it safely. Find somewhere to be able to talk about your grief, your loss, really safely. Now, this could be a therapist, it could be a spiritual advisor, it could be a mentor. If you want to do it in a group setting, obviously we've got the Living in Love program, the holiday sessions, the support sessions that are going to be happening, so you can come to those sessions and be around other people. Sometimes grief can make you feel really isolated, and you feel that nobody really understands and nobody wants to hear, that whole thing around the upset that comes with losing somebody. And sometimes us as Black people, we're not always very good with sitting with our feelings, or sitting with other people that are experiencing feelings. We'll tell each other to be strong and to be positive and all of these things, which don't help. Sometimes you just need somebody to sit with you and to honor and to witness what you're going through without having to make comment about or minimizing their feelings. It's important to allow that person to just sit with their feelings. And this is why the sister circles that I've done over this year, actually it's just over a year now that I've been doing the sister circles. One of the reasons why they are so successful is because people do feel like they have a safe space to be able to share what's going on for them, and they can share their honesty, they can share without judgment what's going on for them. So if you do need a safe space to be able to talk and to be able to process, maybe the Living in Love program, the sister circle sessions are going to help you. So if you click the link in the bio, go to heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. There is a safe space for you to be able to have those conversations. Okay, so talk about it safely with somebody that's not going to judge you or shame you about how you feel. Okay, so the third thing around managing grief is to have some acceptance around your feelings. It might be that you feel sad, it might be that you feel angry. A lot of people might not want to admit this, but with comes with a lot of grief is anger maybe with the person or the job or whatever it is that you're grieving. Anger around losing that thing that was really important to you, anger around the powerlessness around what happened. And also you might feel fearful about what your future looks like, fearful about who you're going to be without that person or without that job or without that thing that you lost, but it's just having acceptance. And it goes back to what I was saying in the beginning about having a space, creating a space for you to be able to really have the space to be able to look at this stuff. And part of accepting your feelings is also part of creating that safe space for you to be able to do that. If you don't have a safe space to be able to accept your feelings and to process your feelings, then you're just going to find other things that are going to kind of stuff your feelings down. And it could be food, it could be another relationship, it can be whatever it is, but it's not healthy. Honoring your humanity is about having acceptance around who you are in that moment and accepting those feelings. So giving yourself permission and writing out, journaling, or talking to whoever you need to talk to about how you feel about your loss is a really important part of not only accepting the feelings, but also healing the grief. Okay, grief takes time. And grieving takes up a lot of energy as well. It's really exhausting. It can be really exhausting, grieving. And so it is important that you give yourself that space to be able to go through the process that you need to. Okay, so that's number 3, accepting your feelings. Number 4, is there some way that you can create some sort of memory or create some sort of ritual that's going to help you to process and not kind of feel consumed by the grief? Now, obviously, when we're talking about ritual and stuff like that, I'm talking about maybe, when you've had time to actually work through the intensity of the initial feelings of grief that you might feel. Obviously, creating a ritual and stuff like that around the person, if it's something that's quite fresh, might not be the appropriate time to do it. Or maybe it does, but whatever you think feels appropriate. Because obviously, if you have lost somebody, you've lost something around this time of year that's really important to you. For me, this time of year feels quite poignant because there were quite a few things that I lost around. It's more kind of towards kind of mid to end of November, but just this time of year has always felt, a certain type of way because I'm still thinking about those things that I lost towards the end of November, and this is accumulated over years. I lost my brother in the middle of November a few years back, but that's still kind of, it stays with me, around this time of year as well, and I think about him a lot. So what I tend to do is, as part of the ritual of remembering him, is sometimes I talk to him. Sometimes I write about it in my journal. Sometimes I do feel angry. Sometimes I feel upset. Sometimes I feel sad. It depends on what it is. But the important thing is just not to ignore it, is to try to ignore it. And sometimes I do try and ignore it. I just think, that was quite some time ago. I don't really want to kind of feel what I'm feeling. But sometimes those feelings are there. And one of the things about grief is that it comes in waves. So we don't always really know the intensity of it or how it's going to show up. But when we acknowledge the grief, and when we acknowledge that actually this is something that was really important to me that I've lost, and then I give myself permission to feel whatever comes up, that's where the power is. That's where you can start to feel empowered. That's when you can start to feel self-compassion. Around the loss of that thing, because you're no longer ignoring it. It doesn't have the opportunity to kind of transform into something else, or transform into you wanting to isolate. You might want to, because that's kind of what I've been feeling actually. If I don't actually deal with what I'm dealing, if I don't give myself permission to feel those losses, then I just feel like I want to isolate, and I don't really understand why I want to isolate. But it's only when I start to write it out and start to think about what's going on, it's then that I think, oh, okay, now this makes sense why I want to isolate, or why I'm feeling irritable or angry or whatever. It's because I haven't, I forgot that this thing happened, and I haven't actually paid attention to it. So, creating some sort of memory or ritual around that loss is a really important thing. And it might be, if it's a bereavement, obviously you might go and visit the person's grave, or like I do, I'll talk to them, because the grave of my brother passed is not in London, it's in Suffolk. But there are things that you can do, and you find something that is going to help you. And it might just simply be, you give yourself that time to think about that person, to think about nice memories, to write about, the relationship, what you're grateful for around that relationship, what you learned from that relationship, and how you can honour that person in your life going forward. So there's just a few little ideas what you can do in terms of creating a memory and a ritual for that person, going forward. And the last thing, number 5, around managing grief and loss, is the importance of nurturing the self. Now, obviously, part of nurturing the self is talking to somebody else and giving yourself the space and the time. But you could also do other things. When you've given yourself that space and the time to grieve, you can take the time to do other things. And what you feel is nurturing yourself is very different. It's very, very different. It might be that you decide at this time of year that you're going to attend some community projects. It's something that I really like to do. There are Kwanzaa events that I go to at this time of year. It might be that that you just go down to see the lights in the West End, or whatever it is. Or just hanging out with people that really care about you, being around other people that do support you, that have cheered you on. That stuff is really important. It's really, really important part of nurturing, and also it can be the small things. Even though I hate the cold and I don't like this time of year, there's nothing like curling up on the sofa with a warm blanket and a hot drink and just watching rubbish TV. That stuff is really nurturing. Having really nice duvet days, listening to really nice music. Making really hearty food, hearty soups. I love all that sort of stuff at this time of year. Even though I don't like the cold, I love the kind of snuggleness of this time of year as well. So these are all ways that I choose to nurture myself at this time of year, to compensate for things like the cold and the grief or whatever I'm feeling. I can nurture myself by doing these things, and this is all part of the important conversation around self-parenting. Ultimately, that's what it is. When you've got grief and loss and all of that stuff happening, ultimately, self-parenting is what is important. Okay, so those are the 5 things. Okay, so I'll just run through them again really quickly. So the first thing is create a space for you to be able to just think about the loss and figure out where you are. Do a check-in. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2 is to have a safe space to be able to talk about it safely. Okay, talk about it safely with, if it be it one-on-one with a therapist or whatever, or doing it as part of the group. So you can do it as part of the sister circle support sessions that I'm going to be doing over the next 2 weeks, to obviously, to empower you and to hold you in that space. Okay, number 3 is accepting your feelings around it. So that means obviously whether you do it in your journal, whether you're doing it when you're talking to somebody, it's having acceptance around the feelings that could come up as a result of that grief. Number 4 is creating memories. Okay, creating a memory, creating a ritual around the grief and whatever. That is really, really important for you to be able to do that. And number 5 is to find a way to nurture yourself. Okay, so whether it is curling up under the blanket with hot chocolate, or hanging out with friends that really care about you. Hi, thanks for joining. Then this is all really important, a really important part of nurturing the self. So thank you so much for joining me today. Those are the 5 things I wanted to share with you around grief and loss. If you do have any more questions or anything that you want to share with me around grief and loss, you can email me at info@yardofgreatness.com, or you can send a direct message, or you can drop your comments below, and I'm happy to talk to them, happy to answer them. Okay, so thank you so much for joining, and I will see you next time. If you know anybody that's suffering or that wants support around grief and loss, then obviously tag them, send them an email with the link to this broadcast. Thank you so much for joining me again, and I will see you next time. Take care. Bye.